Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last session for this term, acrylics painting. We are looking today at a beautiful sunset over the Yorkshire moors. And I have an orange background board, and I have got two pictures. Similar, a little bit similar in some aspects, but quite different in composition. And what I wanted to focus today is, before we start painting, is to sketch our composition and how you can combine a number of photographs or kind of observational photographs to help you out with your work as you build things on your own. So I have a piece of paper today, so I can do a little bit of planning with my pencil before I get started. So what I'll do a couple of boxes. So planning my sketch here, and I do like so this is the first photograph I've given you all, and I'd like it to be kind of my main base image, but I've got few elements I'm not too happy with. Is, for example, how flat the fields are. So I quite like the open view of the fields here. I don't like how perfect the wall is. Maybe I need to change the shape of it. Maybe I want to change it to some of the curved, maybe a more unevenness there. I'm also not overly happy with how black the tree branches are. I can put some more color into that. So I'm thinking of putting, yes, something darker but much more stronger in color, and possibly the shape of the foliage of all the leaves to make slightly different. So my plan is thinking about, okay, where my horizon is going to be, how much of the sky I'm going to have. So if I'll keep it roughly the same, maybe just roughly halfway through, maybe slight slant there. I'll do a couple of sketches, so I'll decide what I'm going to be doing there. So my villages and hills might be coming up there, but I do like, if I'm going to keep it too small, it's going to be just a little bit flat. So I think I want to bring maybe a couple of more hills here, maybe some more trees, so it gives a little bit more of a dynamics to the whole setting. So I'm just going to do a little bit of sketching there. Maybe something coming across. So that's something could help me creating that movement, not too flat observation. I love the clouds here. I have got a small volume kind of a space for the sky, and I want that sky to be my feature in the painting. I love those orangey, gorgeous colors in there. Before I do that, I want to plan my tree. So maybe there's something going on here. So if I'll plan it as, okay, maybe just a quick simplified way of just the tree version. So if I'll do it round, yeah, it might be a bit too boring, but if I'll do something hanging over and where that space might be, yeah, maybe something there. So I'm thinking of all of that space, so what that silhouette is going to be, yeah, or what that silhouette might be. That's where, yeah, maybe it's more simplified and out. Yeah, I think that one might be taking it out too much. However, if I do put my wall maybe a little bit more, so I'm working into that frame, that might be taking it out a bit more. So I think something bringing across. Okay, let's maybe do another one. So till I'm happy with keeping the image, so maybe it's even planning the space within almost, yeah, almost keeping it all together, and then that will be maybe part of my wall. Okay, so I'm finding that window frame of the silhouette darker shapes Okay, so maybe that will be something like that for me. I quite like that. So that's better version. Yes, that's a larger version of it. Okay. So then it makes sense for me then to adjust that fence to a bit more quirky, rough shape. Yeah. And I can work into those stones then differently and have something taller, something shorter. Okay. And then I can decide, okay, on that tree shape, what those dips are going to be, how much of that the leaves is going to be. At the same time, I do want to keep enough space for my sky. So as much darkness I want to be present in my painting, there might be loads of gaps between those leaves so it doesn't look too solid. Okay, so maybe something here, maybe something there. Okay, maybe the darker trees here will, okay, I think that might be the thing. Okay, one branch, another branch. So that's my planning, that's my thinking. If you've just been watching me, that's totally fine, because I'll sketch it with you with a brush. Okay, so that's again, I'm planning rough directions of some of the branches here, how they kind of almost naturally kind of leaning into the painting. Okay. Okay, I think that's will then will stay in the shade. So quite a lot of constructing, planning. Okay, now I can look at that window I've got within my landscape. I think I can drop my landscape lower to have more of a sky. So if that's more of a similar shape, maybe my landscape, kind of the horizon view, maybe a little bit lower to have quite a bit of those beautiful clouds. So I'm leaving the features. Yeah, I'm working out the window frame. I'm working out how much of the favorite elements I want to keep. And then the actual landscape behind will be what we've got left. So I quite like that setting, but on a smaller scale probably here. Okay, so that's some darker trees will be coming up somewhere here. But main focus will stay on the sunlight there. Okay, so I like my frame, a darker frame from this picture, and I like the inside of that gap from that picture. Okay, so only at that stage, you know, if I'm developing my compositions when I'm on site, when I've got few photographs, I'm observing on the spot, that's how I'll develop them in a studio. Okay. Right, so now I will have the two pictures close by for more information when I need it, but I will also have my sketch close to me. I constantly will be thinking how that concept, am I sticking to the same concept? Am I going to have like a gap here? Yeah, it's a bit too much. Or I'm going to have, am I ending up with too empty, kind of too perfect shape? Or am I ending up with a little bit of something too low or something? Yeah, so I'm going to try to avoid certain, maybe less pleasant, less balanced shapes. Okay, right, so let's keep those ones close by. Let's put these pictures aside. Okay, and let's get some paints out. I'll put my gloves on so I'm not so messy. And I'll start with my key three colors. I'll have some white. I'll have some ochre and violet. So that's will get me sketching. Okay, so white, ochre, violet. Okay, so let's get this violet going. Right, the violet looks quite blackish. It's just how camera catches it up. If I'll use now a small, well, a medium round brush, I can mix all three together. I want a little bit more of a darker tone, so I can see it against my orange background. And let's sketch our composition. So from my sketch, I'm gonna start with, it's helped me to do the actual silhouette of that window first, okay? So I'm gonna do that first, and then I'm going to fit in the landscape and the clouds behind. So it feels like easier for me to start from the wall. So maybe some of these stone wall shapes gonna come up somewhere here, make it slightly uneven, well, actually quite uneven, to make that natural old wall effect. Even on the photograph, I've got it quite perfect. I'm not going to break it down into individual stones because I will be painting it in big shapes. So if you wanted to put a couple of shapes just to remind you of the size of them, it can be done, but it doesn't have to be. And then I'll start sketching my trees. I like those straightish lines I was using just to give the directions of the branches, directions of the how the light will be coming through these branches. So I'll do a few of those diagonals. When we do a pencil sketch, it does help us to stay free and to stay loose without getting too attached to fine details and exciting nuances. Okay, tiny bit more paint. There are those two branches will be coming down here. Be one longer, one a little shorter. So it looks like they're all going slightly lower and lower. Okay. And then I can fill it up with some of the shapes of the leaves. So for example, something here might be a bit more of a shape, how the leaves will be forming and growing. There is quite a lot of lower hanging leaves in this section, but I think I'm going to keep it slightly shorter, or at least for now. I think keeping it a little shorter will give me an opportunity to do the sky more. Okay. This branch, it's a different tree, so it's coming that way, so the leaves will be kind of hanging that way. The branch. If I'll keep this branch slightly higher, okay, that's just, then my lower branch is not going to be not going too low. At the same time, let me just dry it out. At the same time, I do want it to finish my window here, that compositional window. So maybe that will come out somewhere here, and that will come out slightly here. Okay. And what I'll do, I'll probably support myself with one line from the wall coming up a bit more. And also on the part of the landscape, we're going to have some darker trees there. And that will almost complete that silhouette. Okay. So let's double check. having some space for the sky here. I might, okay, that's all dry now, it's fine. There will be more gaps, and we'll see how that gap shape will settle in. Okay. I'm much happier with it than the original photograph now. Okay, and let's sketch the inside landscape. Again, I've done it reasonably rough in the sense of how low the branches are going to be. I've got that movement of the directions. I've got rough volume of the leaves, but I haven't kind of tweak it as I go. Right, for the landscape itself, we said we're going to keep the horizon a little bit lower, so then we can have some of the clouds showing. So maybe the right hand side will go a tiny bit higher, and I might group a couple of my clouds here just to give myself again an idea, have I got enough space for them. So if my clouds are going to be somewhere here, okay, that's good. My landscape could stay here. And I'm going to have some of the hills slightly wider open as on the second photograph. Okay, so we see more of that beautiful valley. There could be flowers behind the wall as well. I quite like that. And the trees, maybe somewhere the trees are going to be coming up somewhere here. As a group of trees. Somewhere. Okay, let me see if I can remove this reflection. Okay. Now, once the sketch is ready, we can wash our brush, and we can add a bit more colors to our palette and start painting. So my first layer is going to be the sky, and when we're looking at the sky, I'll be using my first initial photograph. So I'll be looking for some of the gorgeous sunset colors of those oranges, reds, and then I'll have a plainer bluey, kind of bluey violety sky. So I'm going to do a first layer, kind of a blend. I'll play with the color here first, and I'm going to blend it out into more simpler, paler blue version. Okay, layer. So it means that I need some crimson. We already have some violet. So I'll have some crimson. I'll be using crimson instead of cadmium red, because it's the cadmium red will make the painting a bit more. Well, if you start mixing it with violets later on, it might give us a bit of an issue. I'll need a little bit of cadmium yellow. Okay, come out quite a bit. And I'll have some ultramarine. Again, ultramarine is more close to the violet, so when I start mixing the colors, these colors are not going to contradict each other. They're going to be supporting each other. Okay, so let's get going with some of the warmer colors first. So I'll have a medium brush. I'll have some white, some yellow, and a little bit of cadmium, crimson on my palette. Okay, so I can see some of those. It's probably not the darkest reds I'm going to have, but while I've got it here, I think I can use it as so I'm going to ignore now my clouds. I know where my horizon line is going to be, but I have this golden glow of light. Now on the screen it appears very, very white. You can see it here on the palette, much more yellowy, much more stronger in pigment. Because my board is so bold and orange, the camera, the technology doesn't quite pick it up yet. And also because the orange background is so powerful, while the paint is quite thick, it's still, I feel it's a little bit transparent. So if you have a similar transparent effect, don't worry about it. We will be putting clouds on top, and we can always top up the color. I'm going to start adding a bit more red. That's quite a strong red. Maybe a tiny bit more yellow with it. So in a way, you are mixing your cadmium red here, but at some point we're not going to have any yellow in it, and it will be easier to mix it with violet. Okay, so this is going to be the lower part of my sky, and if in a couple of places I want to increase that red and change its tension. Okay. Just a little bit there. That's it. Now, some of that color is left as well on top of the clouds. I'm gonna let the color dry before I do the clouds. Okay. So I'm going to wipe my brush now. And I'm going to start working with my blue, and then I'll merge two colors together. So I'll leave this brush partially washed, and I'll take another big brush for my blue. So I'll use some white, quite a lot of it, and a dab of blue. So that is my ultramarine. Might even do another dab of violet with it, so it just looks a little bit more into the purple side. Don't want it to be too pinky, but now our clouds will have kind of that type of darkness, maybe a little bit darker even. Again, in my screen, it appears quite light. I'll have slightly lighter version of it. Just a slightly lighter version of it. On the corner behind my leaves, my branches. Now I'm going to paint more of the sky first behind the branches. I roughly know where they're going to be finishing, but I'm going to paint just in case more spaces behind the branches, because I can always paint over it with darker colors. So let's just paint some of that space. Okay. And what I'll do, coming lower, I'll start adding a hint of violet, that's quite a lot of it, to my paint, making it a little bit more purpley. Okay, dab of blue back. And then bringing it more, a little bit more pinky, close to my yellow low areas. Right, so I'm bringing the color slightly lighter towards the yellow. And even more light, not quite white, but much pale. Now, if we start mixing it at this stage with the yellow, you'll just end up having very mucky color. So what I'll do, I'll let this layer dry and we'll apply paler yellow washes, semi-clouds shapes to have that effect. Okay, there wouldn't be much light here because we're going to have darker clouds, so I'll keep it low. Okay, I'm going to have a dark cloud here anyway, so okay, that's picked up a little bit of yellow, a wet yellow, and it's mixed with my bluey violet, and I immediately got some green there, which is not what we want. So that's why I don't want you to come and pick up your yellow too quickly. Again, a dab of blue and a dab of violet, and I think I will do a tiny bit more darker corner of the painting. It doesn't have to be perfectly done because we'll have loads of leaves covering these spaces, but I also know by the time we put loads of darker tones, our sky all will be glowing like white, or we might need to tone it down. Okay, that's a bit better. That's a little better. Okay. Now have to let the sky dry well, and the sunset area of the sky as well. So I can work a little bit into the landscape as well. So we're painting everything what's going to be inside of our window first, and then we can frame it at the end. Right, now let's have a look at our fields now and what's part of the horizon while the sky is drying. So I'll start with some cooler colors at the back for my fields. So I'll use my ultramarine, yes, ultramarine blue. So that's my ultramarine, looks a little bit. I think I've got a fellow blue now. I need my ultramarine. Okay, that looks a little bit different, the bottles. Okay, so let's get some ultramarine. So it's super dark blue. I'll add some white to it. Okay, and a dab of a very, very small amount of yellow. Okay, it just gets it a little bit more towards the green side, more kind of foggy, hazy, kind of distant blue, gray blue in a way as well. Now I quite like the color. Now I just need more of it. Otherwise, I just mixed very little. Okay, so let's put a little bit more ultramarine for that. Some more yellow. Okay. So we've got a beautiful sunset. So let's put some of those hazy hills at the back. So that's kind of a greeny, turquoisey, greeny, gray, blue. I'll block it in first. I love the little trees there. I love the divisions of the hills we can make. But so far, I want to block it as we're creating our own composition, not just copying the composition from the one, let's say, photograph or one sketch. As we're combining it, that's might be best to give us a moment to kind of to see those big shapes first. Okay, and maybe another one. I'll have a tiny bit more paler blue. Just a tiny bit more paler, fresher blue. For one of the hills. Okay, that's a bit too wet. I'll come back to it then. That's a bit too wet. I try fellow blue and white. No, okay, it's just too wet there. That's why the color doesn't settle in. Okay, that's fine. Right, and let's mix more fresh yellow, cadmium yellow, with very little blue. Okay, and some white. So we don't want beautiful sunny looking fields. We have a lot of shadows. We've got the last light of the day. So that using the green, made from yellow and blue will give you that effect. Okay, so maybe we'll put some of that on one corner. If you have some of your orange background preserved, that's totally fine. Okay. Maybe a little bit more yellow here. A couple of fields. Okay, that's coming out too strong. That looks still too strong. I think maybe a dab of ochre with it, maybe a dab of crimson with it. I want to have more of a sap green look. Okay, that's better. That's when the orange background will be really supporting us. Okay, a bit more red as we mix in our green. So I'm using ochre, crimson, and blue, one of the blues. And that will be a nice darker green for some of the shadows. And the foreground, probably the shadow from the tree. We'll go further into the gaps between the wall, the stone wall. Maybe part of my trees and the distance will have a similar color. Again, I'm just going to block them, not overly planning them as if they would remain the same color. I'm just looking for those overall shapes. I'm using the side of the brush to create that bit more rougher volume rather than painting it too flat. To allow me to bring new strokes on top later. Okay, or shrink it, or I can do all sorts of things with it afterwards. Okay, a little bit of white on the brush with that green, and I have a cooler green immediately, maybe for the back field. So I'm going to start now filling up all the little gaps left. So your variations are very welcome here. Okay. Still a tiny bit more white. Just trying to make some paler greens. Strokes to make that variation. Okay. And maybe even same green here in the foreground. So then where we have more yellowy greens, it's maybe where the sun is still touching the ground, where it's more cooler greens, whitish greens. Maybe it's the sun is no longer there, and that shadow, even if it's still light and that they're exposed to light, because there is no shadows from the trees, or not obstructed by from the sky, but you have got those paler areas. Just make it a little bit more uneven. Shadow a bit better. Okay. Maybe I'll cover that bold orange as well with some paler green. Again, the dabs of orange stain preserved on some of the borders of my sections there. we'll see how they get on with our painting. Now, as much as I want to dig into the nuances of the trees and pay more attention to it and start looking into varieties of patterns of the fields, and start breaking them down, and flowers and this and this and that, and clouds in the sky, I still want to know how dark my wall is going to be. I still want to know how dark or light or what colors I'm going to be using for my trees. So I might do some testing of my frame, of my darker frame. And once I've done that, it's also will give me a reference point for the main focal point in the center of how much lighter, darker, brighter, bolder I need to, or I can go. Okay. So my plan is to work a little bit into the wall. Well, the wall is quite small here, so I might just do all of the wall in a rough color and do some of the darks of the leaves. So let's mix a color for the wall. Now I'm planning of having my tree branches going into the blues, blue violets, blue greens, kind of emerald green and violets, kind of nice strong darks, mix from those colors. For the wall, I want to have a bit of maybe that sunlight of the sunset colors reflecting a little. So I'm going to deliberately pick up a color made from more violet and crimson. So I'll have some of the white, a little bit of crimson here, and violet. Now, if it will look too pinky violety, I will calm it down with some ochre. But I might just introduce that glow of color first. Might be a little bit too dark, so too light, because it says a shadow, so I need to think of it as a shadow. Okay, that's too bold and light. Maybe a little bit of green, blue. And a dab of violet, a dab of ochre. If your color will start turning to a muddy green, add more crimson. So we are looking for, that's better. That's good. And what I'll do, I'll mix this color, kind of apply it loosely. So if there are some orangey background, transparent in color is seen, I'm going to preserve that. And I also want to make it slightly different in different parts of the painting. So if I'll apply it all together first, and then I can tweak it. So for example, in parts of it, I could have more crimson as little segments of the stones. Parts of it could be paint applied loosely so I can see the orange background. Partly I could have more blue and violet in. The color becomes much more stronger. Okay, I'll do some of that over. Kind of sketch with it a little bit on top. Maybe change the diagonal here for my stones. Okay, again, this is more of a starting point than trying to keep it finished. Maybe there will be some of the those gorgeous turquoisey greens as part of the shadows appearing, and also the other side of the wall I'm going to have a little bit of lighter flowers. Well, the white flowers, I'm not going to paint them white, but they're going to be in some light tone. Okay, and while I have the darkness and color, I think I can apply it for some of the maybe tree branches or tree part of the tree trunk, just to have that little reference point. So some of the branches do look much darker than the leaves themselves. The leaves got a bit more transparency to them. Okay. Now I've done my wall at the front. Let's have a look now at the tree branches. Now I have got some ochre here, but I'm mainly going to use ultramarine here. Okay, so it's a nice darker tone ultramarine. So I want to start with the lighter tones on the branches and get a little bit of light. I don't want the branches to be all black looking, dark silhouette looking. Now, they're not going to be my final strokes, but I just want to identify a little bit of some of the shapes or some of the kind of directions of the branches in light. Okay, now this area is reflecting for you. Okay. So let's put some of them here. I also, at this stage, if I don't like the shapes of them, I can come back to the sky and maybe repaint the sky or touch up the sky. So these are my lighter tones, ochre and ultramarine. So a few strokes. There's some more lighter tones at the tip of this branch. I'm going to try to make it slightly different, maybe in volume or in size of the branch above. Maybe slightly different character for it. It's the same tree, so in that sense, there will be similarities in how leaves are settling. And flicking. And I'm going to have a little bit of lighter tones over this area. That's another reason I have a big brush on. If I would have had a small one now, I would have started digging into too many little shapes. So what I'm bearing in mind my that darker window I was sketching with a pencil, but at the same time now I'm looking for any paler shapes on the leaves. Is there any specific pattern I need to develop? Okay, I don't know if that's going to work or not, but I can work with the sky over it afterwards. I'm going to have a very dark corner here, so to support it, I'll deliberately, even if I can't quite see it on a photograph. My practice tells me if I don't put something a bit paler, I'll lose the volume. It's going to be just looking very flat. Something close to the tree trunk here as well. Okay. And now I'm ready for some darker color for my trees, for my leaves. So I'm adding more ultramarine to my previous mix of ultramarine and ochre. Just going to make it slightly darker. And let's add a bit more. Maybe I will use a smaller brush just to get some of the nuances here. So it's not just pure ultramarine, there is a leftovers of the ochre. So just add small volumes, kind of around areas already painted with a paler green. That's a nice brush for the leaves. That is a lovely brush. So I'm looking for some of the silhouettes shapes just to support it as a starting point. So I'm not going to cover too many gaps. I can always add more. So I'm building it up and stopping. Otherwise this one's gone too low, but we'll have to see. Now my paint needs to be slightly thick. So if I do have some patchy strokes, I might have to go over them again. Okay, now let's build up now larger volumes and get rid of most of the pale blue on the sky. Okay, so that's branches going there. This is another branch building up. I quite like doing that dabbing of the paint. It's not only creates the shapes of the leaves, the character for the branches, but it doesn't fill your space up too quickly. Now, if you're running out of ochre in your paint mixture, just add a small amount of it so you don't end up with just blue leaves. To have some blues is great, but too many blues. Now, at this stage, you might end up with loads of similar strokes, loads of repetitive marks. Don't worry about it yet. We will pay attention a bit more to it afterwards. Or the gaps are repetitive. We'll get back to it. So far, we're just filling things up. If you overpaint and you haven't got enough spaces left, that's totally fine as well, because don't forget you can with acrylics paint back. So we want to start having more and more spaces filled in, especially at the top kind of border. What I'm ending up with, branches looking that way towards the center, and the branches looking the opposite direction from the left towards the center. So then we know these are two different trees reaching out almost for each other. I think I'll do that one a little bit lower now. I'm ready for it to be slightly different. Otherwise, they're all on the same level. I think this branch has gone too low. It is not washed, but I can, when I'll paint the clouds, I'll deal with that. Okay. Now more darker tones in the corner, and then I'll show you how we can make it bold in color and make the color seen in a shadow. So far I'm just still filling up most of my orange. If you can kind of have a little bit of orange trapped between your darker strokes, it will make the glowing light extra exciting. Yeah. So we don't really know if that's the color of the tree, is that the light behind it, is it the whole atmosphere of the place creates that mysterious light. If you overpaint the orange, but you want to bring it back, you can. You just have to wait for the paint to dry and use the same color used for the background. Okay, I think I'm ready for some of these darker tones as well. Not too far, because as much as the branches become exciting, I'm getting happy about the whole setting of the leaves here. I also need to remember that my clouds need to have enough space and enough ground to play. Okay, so now I'm just touching up if I had too many white gaps at the top, but that volume of darkness more or less settled. Okay. Now I'm happy with the silhouette of my branches. I want to touch them up with a bit more light, kind of more of a glow, what some of the leaves catching, and then focus for the inside of the landscape. Okay, so what I have small amount of emerald green, some white, and some phthalo blue. So I want to make a turquoise, kind of a dark version of it. So if I'll have a tiny bit more of that. So that will be the kind of the glowing color. I want to have small amounts of it, small dots, few more kind of reflections. So that will break down my shadow a little more. So I'm going to look for some of the gaps on my where I can see the sky, and I'm going to kind of concentrate some of my turquoisey shapes, kind of to create that little light maybe coming through here and there. So it's going to be next to some of my gaps. Now I can try to spot the shapes I'm doing, so they're not going to be too repetitive. If one is tiny, another one is looking similar, I need to make sure I'll avoid that. So there might be some more elongated, some of them will be just a dab and nothing else. I also don't want to do it everywhere. Let's say if I'll do it more in this area, maybe on the right hand side, I'll have slightly lighter tone, maybe on the edge of some of these leaves. If you overdo them, it's okay. You can come back with a darker color of the leaves. So as I said, I'm doing it close to the paler blues gaps. I'm close to where the sky is touching the branches. Okay, I don't want white in there. So it's almost as it helps us to create a little bit more gaps or glowing light, which is just glowing, just covering, just touching something. Okay, not too much. I don't want to overplay with this. And I'll do the same with the lighter violet. So if I'll have my violet with white, maybe slightly darker version of it. Against the very dark, it will stand out. But maybe I'll have just smaller number of those little dots. They could come really close to some of the greens, but there will be almost like another variation. It also gives you an idea of branches, shapes. For example, if you wanted to tweak any of the branches. So I'm kind of focusing on the right hand side here more. My darker branches are shrinking, so I will do a couple of darker strokes afterwards as well. I think I'll do a little bit of dabs of it somewhere here, close to my clouds area. Maybe that's enough. But this violet color might give me an opportunity to put a couple of strokes for the wall. Okay, hold on, I'll show you. Just a couple of strokes, maybe the top of the stones, maybe the sides, maybe a couple will have a little drag. Maybe this area got a little bit more light. Maybe not all the way down. Okay, when they're a little bit thicker in color, they're better. I was trying to see if I bring them slightly transparent. They're a bit better. Okay. Make that interest point more exciting. Foreground makes it a bit more exciting. And as I'm working with turquoise, or at least I have close colors to mix it, I want some lighter version of it. So some white with my turquoise, or if you run out of it, emerald green and some phthalo blue and some white. Okay. So nice and pale. And we wanted to have some of it on our horizon, kind of close to the horizon. I think that would be quite nice, few glows of it. Few maybe divisions of the fields, or just a bit of a glow close to that orangey sky. The orange and yellow become very strong next to that turquoise. I think I'm going to put another one somewhere here. We have a small number of pale trees, probably covered in the blossom. Maybe some of the cherry blossoms, maybe some of the other wild bushes. So I want to maybe, I'm going to try it out. A couple of bushes here. If it's too strong, I think it might be too strong. Okay, then so we'll have to go. Because what I'm looking at the photograph, sometimes exciting, but I don't think it's going to work here for me. So I'll leave it out. Anything on the wall. Sorry. Easel is Okay. Right, I'm happy with that. Lovely, gorgeous color. A bit wet here, so it's more be glowing there. And now I can pick up smaller brushes and start working on the clouds and the details of a landscape. My final touches will still be maybe the edges of some of the branches and part of the stone wall. So I haven't quite finished them. They're mainly finished. I've got the bulkness of it is done, but some of the elements will need to be returned. I have a smaller flibit brush, so it's a flat brush with a round end, and it's time for me to start working onto my clouds. Picking up some white, some violet. Okay, and I'll do a dab of ultramarine. So I want to start with my most impressive strong clouds. Let's just check if I have got enough darkness. On the stroke I have, but for some reason on the screen you can't see. Okay, you can see better that. So I have a nice shape of it here. Mine is ending up tiny bit more violet, so I'm going to have to change it to small and small, more bluish version. Otherwise, I'm going to have a too similar reference to my branches. Okay, maybe a tiny bit higher. Okay, it's better. And I'll keep the color slightly lighter, slightly darker, slightly lighter, slightly darker. So far, I want to build up its shape first before I'll tweak maybe. Okay, that's looking very light here. Before I tweak the volume within the cloud. So far I'm looking for one element of it. Okay, maybe dynamics of it. It's a border of light. There might be some smaller clouds. Okay, that side I might have some more, tiny bit more blue on the bottom of the clouds. Okay, I need to, again, when we paint in the clouds, we need to make sure that the tones between its light and dark areas and medium areas are very, very settled. So when I've done a very dark strokes here like this, they start immediately competing with my branches. So I need to soften that darkness. If something you're not too sure about, you have your tissue paper. You can wipe things off or dilute things or make things a little bit softer. Okay, so don't be scared of using those tools. And I have some paler clouds close to the horizon. Let's do some different strokes for them. They're almost like linear. I'm not going to do all the little clouds there, but I will do some. And that was a dark cloud here in the corner as well. And we will see close by to our yellows. Maybe this cloud will have more lighter base. So it's like a light coming from underneath of it. Don't want to keep it perfect as a box. I want to keep it rising, going low, shrinking. I want to see maybe a little highlights on the top. Let's see if it's going to be too strong. No, I think that's okay. So now that's your opportunity to thrive and play with the textures of the clouds. I'm mainly using the white, very small amount of violet, mainly ultramarine, and just varying its tone. Can come a bit more close to the branches, and even if you're not too sure, for example, my branches here, the leaves look too I'm not overly happy with them, so I can just use the color of my cloud just to paint over this area, and then in the last stages of the work I can improve the silhouettes of the leaves there. Also, I need to cover part of that and turn it maybe into a cloud. I'm happy now with the sky. Couple of strokes just to, I've just spotted a stroke which was a little too perfect or a little too straight, so varying that is good. Now we can keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking it, but the point comes when you have to let yourself kind of make the final decisions and stop. I'm gonna do last couple of lighter strokes in the corner. Maybe there will be a couple of yellowish strokes coming through, we'll see. Okay, and now I'm ready to do a bit more darker tones for the trees at the back, on the further back hills. Okay, my cloud's not connecting here, so I'm just going to put 2 strokes to connect. That's it. That one is in there still, yes. Right, so to make my darker trees at the back, I'll use my ultramarine and a dab of emerald green. Could have had some yellow, but that will be probably more clearer, cleaner, fresher. Only small amounts, so it's more looking blue than green, because we want to differentiate our color of the clouds. So with my small brush, for example, I can put a little group of trees on there against the skyline. dab of water so I'm not having too many dry strokes. So the base of my trees is going to stay straight on a line, and above I can do little dabs, maybe an individual tree there, and maybe another small group of them. Again, the colors look absolutely wonderful against them. Sky, maybe these trees could go a tiny bit more down, or maybe I can draw them a hill so that slope is going. Some of the shapes started to appear. We can go slightly darker into the blue. I want to put maybe slightly darker trees somewhere here. Again, just to keep the base of the trees a bit more straightish. Or smudge them with a cloth or with a finger. Okay, that looks a little strange line. I don't like how it's sliding down the hill. I started making the shapes. I like the color, I like its placement. I don't like that how they slope down. Maybe I'll pick up slightly different brush, which will give me more control. Let's try this one. So again, ultramarine, there is some white, a dab of green. Small brush takes longer to mix that color. Okay, I need more paint to place it there. So the paint stays and doesn't create texture. Okay, maybe that way it's better. No, I think it's still bright, or something is not quite working there. Okay, let's get rid of it. Let this area be for the moment. Let's work maybe into some of my trees on the foreground. Now there I used a small amount of ochre with a blue. So I just want to make a couple of shadows in this area. Ochre and ultramarine blue. Just a little bit of, it's got this lovely foggy feel. Maybe just need to have a little bit of sharpening in some of it. A bit lighter version of trees will appear. I think maybe with that paler pastel-y touch from the original colors, I think that will work much better if I'll use much more lighter and cooler colors. Okay. So just working onto smaller trees at the back. Tiny bit more shapes. The trees are getting slightly larger towards us. You can decide how much or how little of the input you want to bring with all of that introduction of the trees. Right, I've got the loads of very pale background colors, so I need to kind of horizon line has not been addressed here because I've been looking at two different photographs, so I keep changing my decision. So let's have ochre and ultramarine blue. Maybe put that woodland here. Just don't want it to be too bland. Maybe just dabs of trees here and there now. So they may be in a fog, they might be in something. A little bit of lines building there. That's exciting. Now my dark shapes of the lower trees here, I think I need to go lighter. They are competing too much with them. Tree branches, that's better. Can make them tiny bit dark on the base, some of them. Maybe bring a fresher green for the grass here, so it's back and into the shape of the field rather than the shape of the trees. Okay, I've ended up with extra highlights here, which is lovely. I like that. I like that a lot. Tiny bit of that similar color here. Okay, this one come out mucky somehow. Let's remove that. And let's have a cleaner color again. A bit more yellow with ultramarine. Just a little, okay, a bit more white there, that's what it is. It is quite pale here, partially already. This might be our buttercups field still there, glowing pale greens of that volume of the yellow. I might do a section of a lighter field at the back, doing almost as little patches. Little patches of light. That's very exciting. I like that. And I'm finally ready for the foreground and touches up of the trees and the wall. So for the foreground, I want a tiny bit of those beautiful flowers. So I'll use, I haven't washed my brush, I haven't cleaned my brush, just adding more blue, more white to it. Just a little bit more white to it. And I think a dab of blue. My grass is here quite dark. So I want to have it just a little bit kind of lighter version of bluey green. And I'll do little umbrellas, dabs, little curved shapes, so the flowers might just stand out. Okay, maybe smaller strokes will be even better. Okay, they're just coming out of that shadow. Maybe a little low areas. Maybe again something's going slightly higher. I think I'll try a different brush because this brush is splitting a bit too much. Okay. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to overlap some of my darker trees here. If yours dried, you can do that. If it hasn't dried, maybe wait for the trees color to dry to work on top. Okay, so then we have some taller plants. And I'm just running out of paint. That's better. And I might even put some of these flowers on this side of the wall. So then I have that most beautiful haze of them. When you go for your gorgeous walks, they're still out there, end of May, early June. Just getting some of them a bit more here into those little groups. So the impression is that there is a wall and then it's moving away from us and it's something else happening. And it's not as much darkness the same time, it does frame the painting beautifully. Right, that's all good. That's all good. Maybe one more here. Just add into a couple of my strokes here. All right. Now I'll use a slightly darker tone for a couple of stems and grasses, and that will be the same color I'll use for the darker outlines of my wall. So blue, ultramarine blue here. I'll just do a couple of stems here, just to see something's going. Kind of few of those umbrellas are getting connected. Maybe a paler color here as well. Yeah, I think not overly dark one at the top. More suggestive than trying to connect things. Okay, and then my wall touch, dab of violet and ultramarine. Dab of violet and ultramarine. Where I wanted to have a little bit more separation of some of the shapes of the wall. Now I'll do small amounts of it just to see if it's working. So easier to do it maybe on area not close to the flowers if you're not sure. Because we don't want to outline every stone here. We want to have that impression of it and maybe use part of some of that same color as a more of a shadow. Yeah, that's better. I'm making them slightly different in size. They don't need to be too repetitive. That's with the shadow there. So I'm working with the shapes I have now. Instead of perfect, trying to do any perfections, I'll work with, I think here only a tiny bit needed. And I think maybe some of these darker violet lines I might soften. So they're not as perfect dark outlines, a bit more settled. I think that works better in between the flowers. Almost there. Love that preserved glow of orange still in this corner. I think some of these could be slightly darker as they're coming out on the top of the light area. Only a couple. Okay, so we've broken that wall down, but we've got that window. I've got a couple of strokes to finish my tree branches of that green and maybe violet. Sorry, green, ultramarine and violet. If you need it a bit more green or whatever color you might need it to touch things up, maybe a dab of ochre with that all. So last few dabs just to fix, for example, this branch. If I covered too much space, or if you need a little bit of an extra silhouette fixing, if that's too much of those little violet and turquoisey branches we've done, perfect opportunity to tweak all that. Any edges you don't like or any overlaps of the color. That's not always easy to do, but with perseverance and the more practice you have, you also find the brushes you like more for certain types of trees or how close the trees to you. Okay, just want to make sure again that my branches here not competing with each other. Okay, maybe one tiny bit longer. And this end as well. And I think I can see a couple of lighter blocks I can bring back again. Looks like I could do with a gap here. And somewhere here. So I squint my eyes to see if it's looking any better. You can step away from your work. You can look in the mirror at your work by holding it towards the mirror, and you'll start seeing maybe that repetitiveness of the marks. Or yeah, that's looking all good. I think I'm done. So the frame of the solid silhouette is gone. We visually read it together. The grasses, the plants, the darker trees are supporting it, but it doesn't mean that we have a solid black kind of window. We've got loads of excitement going on in the background. The sky, the sunrise or the sunset is taking all that attention. So the trees are much more softer and gentler on the landscape as well. So give it a go if you need to play with more details and work into little nuances, but keep the all of it supporting that sunlight. Okay, don't over focus on the foreground or on the leaves or on the trees. Yeah, kind of your key moment here is that sunrise. Keep enjoying it and keep preserving it as much as you can. And I look forward to seeing your finished paintings. Thank you very much for today.